Hello ladies and gentlemen, the saga continues with this little stone here for KG. Now, I'm just going to focus on this one in this video because it's going to need a little bit of attention. So we've got a very interesting stone. This is from the $50 Lightning Ridge parcel, recorded a part 1 and a part 2 already. So this is part 3. We're just going to first check out this color bar just here and hope that it's alright. Over the other side here, there's a bit of sand in there, there's a bit of colorless crystal. And we're going to hope that maybe there's a bar that forms pretty solid on there and it covers the majority of this area. That's the first easy one to check. Then the other end of the stone, we've got 2 bars. So bar 1, really dark blue-green, mainly blue, and then a little bit of a lighter, trickier green here. Now because of all this sand up here, this is going to be the top, and we're going to come down and see what this bar is like. If this bar is good, then we're going to have to slice this stone down the guts and go for this stone here as well as a basically the back side, which I think will be the stronger bar, so it'll end up being the top side and this will be the bottom. So we're not going to dome when we reveal this, we're going to keep it flat. And then yeah, if this one's a bit of a dud, we're just going to carve right through and see if we can get this nice bar. Over this side it's still a little bit iffy on whether it'll be nice and solid or whether this will have a lot of sand in it. But you can see it's a quite decent size. And if this stone, either this bar or this bar works out, we should basically in one piece make back the $50 investment in this parcel for KG. So we're gonna cross our fingers and hope for the best. And yeah, there's heaps of potential, heaps of possibility. And if one thing doesn't work out, we can still recover quite well. If all 3 fail, then we're in a bit of trouble. But I'm hoping that just one comes through, and if one comes through, we're going to go pretty well, I reckon. So yeah, check bar, and then decide on how we're going to get this bar the best. Let's get into it. And off we go, 80 grits into diamond. We're just getting rid of the huge little chunks. I could have just sawed this part off, but the 80 grits into diamond really makes short work of all of this stuff. And the basic goal here is just to really reveal everything. So reveal the bars, reveal the faces. You want to pull up just short with the 80 grit, otherwise you're going to leave huge gashes in the face of your opal. So you just want to get close to it where the opal starts peeking through and then stop. But the edges, you can really bring that in, take off all the sand. Really shouldn't leave too much sand behind unless it's like dispersed sand inside the opal. At that point you can go down to the 600 grit or lower and just try to work them out like that, but the 80 grits into diamond will make short work of your sand and it'll make short work of your opal, so make sure you don't hit the face. But we're just going to get rid of the major pockets, anything soft, anything potchy, anything boring really, just get rid of it. Alright, we've actually got a bit of a battle in our hands. So there's a really nice black potch here. But on the other side here, I've just had a quick little pick in here and this sand spot actually keeps going. It just keeps going in and in. And I was actually playing with the idea of getting a slice down here and then having this on this as the backing and this bar on this section as the backing, as well as this one over here. But unfortunately, mainly because of that sand over here, I think I am going to have to go for the slice here and try to get a double-sided stone out of this, which could be still a fairly unique and pretty good looking stone. A lot of the colour is actually backed onto over here anyway, whereas this side starts getting a bit potchy. So I think the best way to go is to have this as a double-sided stone. Now the top we're not in the clear either, because if you have a look here, this crystally sandy spot just keeps on going in. And I am actually thinking it's going to go in somewhere like here. So we might have a smaller stone over this side, which does have some really good colour on the bar just over here. But over this side, we are going to have to really grind that back because you just can't have that sand. Even if it clears out just over here, we can't have that sand in a crystal opal. You'll see it all the time. You can see it just over here. And it's also really soft and would destabilize the opal if you were trying to do anything with it. So we're still going to run with the 80 grit burr. We're going to go down here, but first we're just going to do a slice, and we're going to do a slice up here because there's this weird little color feature over here that I don't want to hit. I want to actually see what that is, and maybe that could be something interesting as well on the back side of this stone here. I've cut a little bit of a groove, if you can see here. That's a little cheat's way of doing it with the Dremel. So I've got a nice little edge there that I can now just slice straight across. And then, yeah, double-sided stone, and we'll still go for this single-sided stone. So a bit more work to go. Let's dive in. So the sawing I'm not going to speed up too much because I rarely do it. The reason I rarely do it is because it makes a huge mess when I'm trying to record, and a lot of the time you'll see it splash and cover the lens. So it will fog up a little bit at times, but I try to avoid it. When it comes to the sawing, I kind of describe it a lot like sketching. I'm a terrible artist. Check out Nick Hoops if you want a good artist. But I'm a terrible artist, and sketching in my mind is basically making small little feather strokes until you build up the picture, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm just going around, and instead of just relying on drawing a line and then just sawing to that line, as soon as the blade goes off with this stone, it becomes really hard to get back on track. So I basically go and sketch the line with the saw blade. And you'll see, I wanted to emphasize a few times where if you try to push too hard too fast, you'll see that it gets really dry and then you create a lot of dust, and we don't want that. So it's constantly just like a little, like you're sketching a painting, you're just doing a small little scrape across the surface, then dunking it back in the water. And just over and over again, like now. So this is how you actually want to do it. And you can see, just go all the way around, make sure the lines meet, and then from there, life becomes a lot easier, especially if you manage to pull off a good join. And you just, yeah, go through it and keep it hydrated, keep the dust down, wear a mask anyway, and you eventually get down to the middle. You don't need to cut all the way through. Eventually you can just snap it off, but there I cut all the way through. And then we're back to the 80 grit sintered diamond, working on the big bar on top. And you can see I'm just working out the last of the sand, and then we're going to stop this one here. Mainly because, well, there's a few issues and I'll showcase those in a bit. But yeah, this one doesn't work out quite so well. So the second stone, you can see here, that's the one with the 2 bars still attached. We'll just get rid of the little saw cuts. 80 grits into diamond until we get close to the face, and then we're going to pull up and switch over to a higher grit, the 600 grit. Now you can see here, it chips, it carves incredibly quickly. It can create a bit of dust if you don't keep it watered. So just be really careful, make sure you keep looking. You can see that every time I take away the burr, I tilt the stone away from me, towards me, and just have a nice quick look, because the pot can disappear incredibly quickly. You'd be very surprised. People think that dremeling the opal is a slow process, but it's actually incredibly fast. So you just got to keep looking, and you can see it's fading, and about now I'm starting to think, nah, bail on that one, and I switch over to the other side. So same thing again. I like to do this thing where I cut a X-shaped groove across the face. I don't know why, but it helps the sintered diamond burr cut faster. So try it out if you want to. It just helps with the speed of it. It's not really that important. It's also fine to just keep it nice and flat. And you can see here I'm looking at the edge a lot, but every time I take that burr away, I'm just checking the face, because you really don't want to hit. You don't want to hit precious opal with these burrs. Trust me, an 80 grit does serious damage and you can't reverse it. So just keep an eye on it. You can see now I'm starting to get that hue of blue coming through, and I know I'm close. Taking off the last of the black potch and then switching over to the 600 grit, and now I can have a little bit more freedom and just brush off the last of that potch. You can see there. Nicely reveal the face. Also revealed a little sand spot there in the corner, so gonna have to take those off like this. But it's much better at this point to do everything with the 600 and not go back to the 800, because you can also chip on the edges, and then you've got to change your doming, and it gets quite messy quite quickly. And then the normal process, so 600 grit until we're happy, gotten rid of most of the major inclusions. 280, final shaping. Starting to think about how we're going to get a polish on this stone. And yeah, just quickly hit everything, hit the edges, hit it all, get rid of the last of the sand if you can, and then 600 grit. At this point, you really need to make sure that all of your scratches are gone. If you can see a scratch without a loop, then you're in trouble, and you probably have to go back to the 280 or stick with the 600 until it's gone. If it's taking too long with the 600, don't feel bad about going backwards. Going backwards steps in the Novas really isn't that bad. You just don't want to waste too much time. So then the 1200, this is where you should start seeing the fogs clear a little bit. You should be able to always see the color even though it's dry. And then we will go across to the 3000. At this point you are starting, it's not really a shine, but at least the dull, you'll get a matte kind of finish on your opal. You shouldn't see anything unusual, you shouldn't see any pits left, you shouldn't see any scratches left. Any kind of scrape or scratch on the surface means you're going to have to drop back to the 600 again and go through the last stage. And then we're going with the cerium oxide. Lightning Ridge opal, I always recommend cerium oxide for lightning ridge stones like this. It always works a treat. Well, from that massive chunk of rock, this is all we've ended up with, these two little stones here. This one I didn't take through the entire process. The main reason is that if you look carefully in here, you see that little browning area? There's a lot of little bits of sand all trapped in through there, and it's deep. It's not just on the surface, and we don't even have that much bar left. So this one is a little bit shot. Even after removing all of that crystal sand shot stuff here, the actual good color bar is also a little bit sand shot. You know, you could polish it up and it would still look okay-ish, but because it wasn't real good gemmy material, I kind of dropped that and instead favored this little piece over here. So this is the one with the double bars. One bar is a really subdued, really black blue kind of stone. In some angles it does look pretty good, but like I said, it's very subdued, so not the best. Didn't focus on giving it the finest of polishes, but this side here is the winner side. So a nice green. It's not as dark as I would like. In this dark area over here, there is some nice green on top of it, but because it's so small, I mean, we are looking for stones similar to this. This is close. I would have liked the whole stone to be a bit more like the dark patch over here. But the other thing I'm going to float with KG is, if you look here, there is another color bar under this dark patch of potch up here. The only reason I didn't automatically carve through it is because, one, it's got good color here, but two, this little potch line actually meets with the rest of the potch over here. You can't really see it because of the glare and how little it is, but if you have a real good look under magnification, it links all the way through. So if I carve through it, trying to hit this one here, we're most likely going to end up with a potch line going straight across the front, which is not as good as what it would be just like this. The only other thing is that it doesn't reach on this side, so we could end up with the potch line not going all the way through. It might just stop. It's a bit of a gamble, one that I'm not really willing to take right now because I kind of like the stone as is, but if I were a gambling man, I would probably go through that and see how much of that potch will cut into the face at the front. But yeah, in the end, it's really just this face. I mean, you've got to keep in mind that double-sided stones don't really add that much value to the stone. Sure, you can probably set this in a pendant or something, but it's a very small stone for a pendant. And that's the only time you'd really be able to show off both sides. I haven't seen rings that kind of showcase both sides of a double-sided opal all that well. So when you're pricing opal and it's double-sided, you can't really just double the value of one of the faces. You've kind of got to just price it based on the first face. And from a $50 parcel, this is not a bad stone, but I wouldn't be over the moon yet, because even though you could sell it for a bit, I don't think it would meet the $50 mark. And also, I've spent a lot of time on this piece of rough in general. So if you count your time value, it's you definitely spent a lot in time. It doesn't matter so much for us hobbyists, but if you're a professional, it's pretty important. And you can see here the stone's dried off. I've been starting to use my new cerium oxide, which I'll have for sale eventually when I get the website up and running. But I'm just putting it through its final paces, and I've got to say it is the best cerium oxide I've used so far. I'm definitely sticking with it. I've finally found the one. I've hunted for years and I've finally settled, so I think I'll have to really stock up on this one and definitely not sell it all because I never want to run out. Well, that's that, and yeah, I think the small yellow one that I had in the previous rubbing video, that's probably going to beat this one out in terms of value. So I'll probably bring that one back on the channel and give that one a nice little carve up and polish it up and see what we end up with, because I think that's the one that's going to be the high value stone. This one just hasn't quite worked out on any of the 3 color bars. This one's just too subdued. This one's got a little bit of unevenness, and then this one over here is just really, it's got sand all through it, which I guess I should have predicted because of how the crystal had so much sand in it as well. This one was a bit of a dud. There might be a small area over here that's worth something, but yeah, not a great bar. So we had 3 and only 1 kind of semi worked out, and that's just opal sometimes. So we're just going to move on to the next stone and hopefully we can find another gem.